what should be a very simple, very easy firefighting exercise into a 1 or 2 day affair because you couldn't stop people from doing it. Okay? There was a volunteer department that I had to work with that I dreaded. They were the ultimate nightmare. They had 50 years of experience, 50 years of wildland fire experience, and they were the worst department I'd ever seen. They were awesome guys, great equipment, tons of good stuff. Did the same thing on every fire. They'd come in on a flank, and they would haul ass around this fire, just as fast as you could move. Fighting the fire from the vehicle. They had a guy on the truck spraying the hose, so they were moving. And with every one, I'd be behind him, maybe by a mile, you know, trying to catch up, because I'm cleaning up his mess as he went out in front of me. And each one of these would turn into a little Medusa, sometimes a big Medusa. You know, so by the time you get the radio call from engine 1 up here, and they're thinking, hey, we got the fire, we went around, we're good. Because they had a partner engine that did the same thing on the other side. So you got 2 fire trucks sitting up here, and they got this whole thing out, except now the entire fire looks like Medusa's head, with these big, long strings of fire sticking off in every direction. And you want to talk about a nightmare to put out. Think about the simple mechanics of it. You're carrying, we'll say, 500 gallons of water. That will bring you from right here to right here. That amount of space before you exhaust your tank of water. Well, great. Transfer that to 1 Medusa. You're screwed. You have no way to get enough water to put all these out. The only thing that you're allowed that actually worked is I burned the whole thing. I would tie all these together, and I would burn thousands of other acres of pasture that ranchers were depending on because their local fire department was destroying their ability to put these fires out. They should have been simple, they should have been easy, but instead they turned into a giant mess with thousands of acres lost and a lot of time, a lot of livestock. But that's the only way to fight these. So that's what happens over and over and over, is you're watching departments turn a simple fire that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tanks of water. You'd be done with that thing. Or 7 trucks, which was easy to come up with. I could do that easy. You know, so a few trucks in a tender, this is a cakewalk. This, not so much. So that's what happens. Those 3 things go very, very wrong.
Where is accessibility to the fire pit?
Good question. Good question.
Because if you're at the flank, you might have 5 to 10 miles walking in instead of bringing in a tanker like you would at the head.
Was it that again?
At the flank, at the origin of the fire, say this was a lightning strike,
Mm-hmm.
you may have 5 to 10 miles of walking into it because there's no roads, no nothing else. But yet at the head of the fire, you have a road going into it.
Okay. Okay, great. So let's clean this up over here. We'll just draw the basic fire.
Because on your other illustration, you had them come in at the head of the fire, so the flank of the fire, but that might be the only way to get to it to start doing their thing.
Uh-huh. And that's a reasonable assumption to make. Very, very good question. If here's your road, and this is all hilly and trees and all kinds of mess, you're thinking, well, how am I going to get all the way down here? Well, you probably can't even see this. You don't even know how far you have to go.
It's up by foot.
And it could be by foot, you know. What are the 3 weapons you have to go against fire?
Tools.
Hand tools.
Hand tools.
You have just now delegated yourself into a hand crew,
Right.
which is miserable work. Very difficult. But you would say, well, the head's here. I can get a fire truck to it, so I'm going to go for it. Right? Sounds good?
Well, that could be dangerous.
Okay. That is what happens. It becomes very dangerous. I've watched a lot of volunteer engines come that close to being burned over. I'm talking 200 feet off my bumper, you know, and they just went at it head to head. Instead of going in from the flank, they went right straight into the head. We're not talking heavy fuels. Less fuel than we have out here, just grass fires, basically. Little gust of wind, took some dust, blew it into the vehicle, all on fire. Next thing you know, you got guys screaming and yelling, jumping out of the trucks because the interior's on fire.
But there again, in that situation that we're talking about, do you want to attack a little bit from the head and put your crew where they gotta walk 5-6 miles in to get to the flank to try to put it out?
I'm gonna hike them 5-6 miles. Yeah. The reason is, I can't train our fire department to be able to engage the head of a fire. And no one should, to be honest. Even the crews that I had, 20-year-old
See,
guys.
that's what I'm hearing,
Mhm.
because of accessibility to this particular scenario. You do what you can at the head and then make sure you get people in there from the flank.
No.
Or, no, okay, I'm just
Good.
asking questions.
If you were to do that, say, you drive in, and here's your truck, and you're cruising along, and, here is accessible. That place is easy to get to, and you're able to work that. You think, well, and at the same time, you hike a group of people all the way down to the bottom. You believe that this engine is helping you. It's not. What you're doing is you're creating the potential for this to Medusa out, like that. Big devil horns on it. Very common thing that happens. Because you're right, the egress, the access to the fire becomes more important. This is also part of the human nature thing. I'll do it the easy way. If I can't drive to it, well, I'll just fight what I can here. Tons of departments do that. They'll just engage the fire to the best of their ability on something like this, and they're creating more of a mess than they are fixing it.
But in our situation, you have to keep an account of the personnel you have also in the physical of the personnel.
I'm not going to grab a whole bunch of 70-year-old guys and go hiking 6 miles to go engage a fire. I'm not going to do that.
It's a damn good thing.
Yeah. I might get a complaint from Ed if I were to try that. That's literally when you park and observe. You park over here and you watch and you relay good information until the crews that have the ability to do that can get on scene. Most of our country, we can get pretty close with a vehicle. Even if it were to take, we got to drive all the way around here and come all the way over here and then cross country it over to the base, we'll get there. That is an acceptable plan. Whatever puts you and your equipment down here in the flank, and more importantly, creating your anchor, that's where you are safe and can do this. Any efforts to the front or flank are just what you're wasting water. You're out there, and we all know how exhausting this is. You've only got, an hour of time before you're pretty much winded out, and that's if you're in pretty good shape. So you don't want to throw all your efforts at this and then you lose it as it gets huge.
No, it's just something I was sitting there thinking about.
No, it's one of the biggest factors that force people into bad tactics. Because the egress dictates where they engage the fire instead of their own head. If you make a conscious effort to always go for the flank, always go for the heel of the fire, start there, you're taking care of your safety. You are going to be safe. Because the one thing this is another part of human nature, when you look at your fire, you assume it's going to be stagnant. That it's going to be the way that it is all day. If it's going that way, well, guess what? In 3 hours, it's still going that way. Real life doesn't work that way. A thunderstorm can situate somewhere near your fire, a front passage, any number of things, and all of a sudden, this becomes the head of the fire. Okay, way down here. But if you've anchored this properly, and you've got this out, and you're in here somewhere when that shifts, it's going to Medusa, but you're in a burned out safety zone. You are as safe as you're going to be. Don't run away, just stay right where you're at. And, the fire may wrap around, but you've got a burned out safety zone, cold safety zone, good, clean black already. So, yeah, but the access is only one factor that'll make you do this. The biggest thing that I see is if access looked like that, people will try and run this tactic without having an anchor point. They'll try and do exactly what we're describing, they just do it in the wrong order. If your fire's still here, same exact fire, And there's your road, your access point, and they come driving in, and they say, oh, okay, well, we're gonna anchor, flank, and pinch, and we're gonna do it like that. And that's where they anchor. It's not a good anchor. You know, this fire has a lot of potential without a wind shift to get around you. You may not be able to see the whole fire. So it can sneak around you and you won't even know it and cut off your egress back to the road. And you don't have a very good cold black area up here on this flank because it just burned. Down here it's been burning for a while, so most of this is cold in the interior. Most of the cow pies are just barely smoldering. You know, a few little bits of brush and debris are burning a little, but it's not too bad. This is okay. Up here, not so much.
When would you consider penetrating a flank to come down through the interior to get to your anchor point?
Okay, that's an option. What are the considerations to doing that? What do you think?
Weather,
Weather? Okay.
time of day.
How completely the interior has been burned?
There's the big one. You know, that's your number one. When you drive your truck up there, you're going to be able to see it. You won't know until you're right up on the edge. If you look out into the interior of the burn and you see a bunch of fire and a bunch of orange embers and a lot of glow going on, you don't want to roll out into that because what are your tires made out of? Rubber. You know, you're going to pick up, I mean, little embers, it'll roll right over the top of it, won't even care. But if you get into the stump holes, a good hot spot, a good pile of coals, it will catch your tires on fire and burn them up. So that's a judgment call, and that's up to the operator. They're going to say, you know, can I get in here or can't I? And it depends on the engine. Chris, if you're in engine one, what tool do you have on board there that might alleviate exactly what we're talking about?
As far as, what do you mean?
If you pull up and you're seeing the edge of the fire and you want to get into the black and follow it all the way down here, but you want to use the black since it's burned out and clear basically to get there, you pull up to this point and look at the fire and you see a bunch of active fire around. What tool does engine one have to deal with that?
Spray
I
ball?
suppose I'd use the spray bars and drive down the
Yep.
edge of the black and the green,
Okay.
put on the flame links and all the rest.
Okay, now you're engaging from here. You're just doing the same thing, but from the black side. Okay? When you slow down to do that tactic where, well, I figure I'm here, I might as well put out some fire as I go, you're risking, because you can't move very fast doing that, you're doing the same thing as somebody from this side of the black. You know, you're just creating the potential for it to maneuver. It's better to use your spray bar and just haul butt until you get down here and then turn it around and start working the flanks out to create that safe area.
Could you walk the hose also?
What's that?
Walk on the hose also?
No, you wouldn't be able to move fast enough. You'd be stuck in the same position that I was, you know, like I'm saying, like you'd have one truck here and one truck here, trying to do an anchor, flank, and pinch.
But if you didn't, okay, so if you didn't have the spray bar, then you wouldn't do it at all.
I would, well, if it was hot enough that it made you uncomfortable as an operator to drive into it. If you looked at it as just grass, two cow pies burning, you'd probably say, well, if I could drive my pickup in there, I could probably drive a fire truck in there, it'd be okay. And you just drive right in, no problem.
My question would be, if you're running the spray bars, you're not dumping that much water, whereas the things that will actually burn up your tires and whatnot require a lot of water to cool down. In other words, the stump holes and all the rest. I mean,
Right.
I understand the concept, but I'm grasping trying to deal with the reality of.
Okay, stump hole is cooking hot, you know, and yeah, you park a tire or even roll a tire on that, you might blow a hole through it, you know.
Well, yeah.
The quick run across with the spray bar creates a crust, just a surface crust of cooler embers. I mean, you're just taking the heat off of it to drive the tire over it, and you're done. You're not going to park there, you're not going to hang out, you're just getting where you want to go. And the spray bar will give you enough of a temperature drop where it's not going to melt into the rubber. You're just creating a crust, basically, to drive over. But you're right, if it's a big deep hole, you can't put it out with a spray bar. You know, all you can do is create that little crust over the top to make it safe to drive over. I never had an engine that had that capability. I wish that I had. I'd seen them out there, some of the other departments had them, and they were very effective. for doing exactly what we're talking about here. They'd make the road in to the anchor, and everybody would follow them in. And then when you had enough tires over the same thing, the weight of the tires would put it out. You know, when you had tenders and everybody else right behind. But walking with a hose turns you into an attack. You are now attacking the fire, and that always needs to be done from your anchor point. Now, there are a lot of tactics on how to anchor into the sides and multiple anchor points and a million different other tactics. We can't do that, and we shouldn't do that. You know, if there's an exception to this, I'll let you know. I'll say, hey, okay, we're going to go outside of our anchor, flank, and pinch, and we're going to do something a little different. So I'll make it known when that's going to happen, but it won't happen very often because we're going to maintain our safety and our effectiveness by using the #1 best tactic out there, and that's this: unmodify. The moment you start to modify it is when you start taking risks, and I can't train everybody up to that level. Any other questions on that?
Where do you see this scenario actually occurring out here, where we roll up on a multi-hundred acre fire or whatever?
Oh, no, this is for any size fire. I don't care how big or how small. This can be 1/10 of an acre, it can be 1,000 acres. Makes no difference on how you use the tactic. And actually, let's take a little break, and I want to give everybody kind of a chance to stretch their legs every hour, so let's take a break. And then we'll answer that one. We'll use the highway. Last class review before we actually get into the tactical part of today's training. And I'm not talking about the class that we kind of canceled and just fudged around with the sand table last time. I'm talking about the Firefighting 1 class I put on, or basic firefighting. What do you guys remember from that class? The gist of it. Anything. Give me anything from that class that you learned or remembered or
Be
whatever.
safe.
Be safe, okay. Do you remember what we had? Be happy, okay, we're gonna be happy and safe, okay.
Very basic.
How to advance on the fire?
Pinion trees.
Okay, that was actually during the homeowners meeting, so that was even different. How do you advance on the fire? Okay.
Because
okay.
there's hills involved and stuff like that, and how to reposition people.
Okay. Specifically, there were 2 things that I talked about. I gave you guys weapons, and I gave you guys fuel types.
Oh, then I'm thinking of something else then.
Yeah, I actually don't think you were
Last time
out
we were
there.
here, we were with the sandbox inside this building. Unless I'm going too far back.
Okay. No, you were at the training. I know you were there.
Unless
Okay.
you're out there playing with the fire hose off the trucks. Out on the road here, squirting water.
That was the day. That was the
That's the
day.
one you're talking about?
Yep,
Oh,
that's
teamwork.
Teamwork, okay. Okay, we definitely had a lesson with that out there. But in the classroom part, what else did we talk about? I gave you the 2 things, but what did that
The
mean?
fuel types.
Fuel types, what about?
Well, you have the 3 different types out in our area here.
Okay.
The grasses, binions, and a few of the pea pines.
Do you remember the,
4 times the height.
thank you, 4 times the height of the fuel, perfect. Somebody tell me about weapons. Nothing. Oh my God, that's,
We got weapons, we got brains, we
okay.
got
You're talking
trucks.
about the fire hoses?
Fire hoses, a little more specific? What?
Fire nozzles.
Oh, that's not really what we talked about. Water? Water. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, bottom line is you have to have weapons to go against fire. Fire is too powerful for you to walk up and with your bare hands, you're gonna put that fire out. Good luck to that. You know, if it's a cigarette, maybe you'll be all right. But other than that, not gonna happen. So you need some weapons. I gave you 3 of them. 3 different things that you can use to fight fire with.
People, truck, or water.
Close. Hand tools, hand line construction. If you want to go head to head against a fire where you cannot get a fire truck, that's the way that you're stuck with. It's the hardest, most difficult physically, but it's effective. You can dig hand line. Another one, and the next 2 both revolve around engines. One is running attack, where the engine is in motion the whole time you are fighting the fire. You are moving along with the truck, with the edge of the fire. And the third was a static hose line, where you park the truck, it does not move, and your hoses just keep going on and on and on and on following the fire. Okay? Those are the three options that we have on this department. I used to have 4, and I loved my 4th option, and that was aircraft. I could call in anything I wanted at any time. So seats, heavy air tankers, whatever I wanted. We don't have that, so so we're stuck doing it the hard way. Okay, those lessons are really important in remembering what you have to work with. So when you get to the fire, you know what to pull out of your back pocket. Some of this is going to kind of fit together today with where we're going to go with tactics. Understanding that the tactics are going to help you, but you've got to understand what your tools are. What are the weapons that you have to use those tactics with? The tactics don't care. All of the things I'm going to teach you today are going to be exactly the same as far as the tactics are concerned. What weapons you choose are totally up to you. So try to pick the right ones because it will make your job considerably easier. Okay. Any questions on that? On what we learned at the last time or anything there? No? Okay. Let's take a break. Get up, stretch your legs, and then we're going to start with tactics when we get everybody back. Take a leave or whatever.